is no guarantee for success, but there are ways to get closer to it when you do the right things. Who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you do. Finding the right people, the right classes, the right activities, and taking the right tests are all decisions that shape your future. Find out more today on Destination University with Dr. Cynthia Colon. Dr. Colon and her guests will give you the tips you need, whether you're a student, parent, or educator. Now, here is your host, Dr. Cynthia Colon.
You're listening to Destination University, a podcast for college-bound teens and the parents, mentors, and educators who support them. If that is you, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Cynthia Colon, TEDx speaker, college admission strategist, and author of the book, Be Committed, Get Admitted. Welcome to Destination University. We help high school families successfully navigate the college admission process by helping students create an action plan, become interesting applicants, and write compelling essays that increase acceptance letters. As a former admission officer at Vassar College and an elite private school counselor in Los Angeles, I have coached, mentored, guided, and worked directly with over 10,000 students. I know what it takes to get admitted to top 100 colleges. As my gift to you, I'm revealing the exact admission committee process we used at Vassar. It's all in my new guide, 4 questions admission officers ask when deciding who to admit or reject. You can get that at drcynthiacolon.com/admit. In the guide, I share the 4 questions I used in the 12 minutes I had to review an entire application. I give you the order I read the application, what I was looking for, what I highlighted and took note of. If you've ever wondered what admission officers are looking for and how decisions are made, well, today is your lucky day. Again, go to drcynthiacolon.com/admit. Okay, let's get to today's episode. Welcome, everyone. This is what I like to call Truth Talk Thursday. And we try to get speakers in here who are really going to be honest and candid with you about the landscape of admissions or test prep or anything that they have expertise in. So I'm really excited to welcome Ryan, who's been a friend and colleague for many years. Too many that I care to admit, but he has been in the industry and is an expert in this tutoring and testing world. So welcome, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Cynthia. Good to see you again.
To see
And
you
it hasn't been too many years. We've still got plenty ahead of us.
Yes, that's true. So I'm going to start with one overarching question, and then we'll go from there. And students, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. But we've seen it all in the last few years in terms of testing. It used once upon a time, not that far ago, everyone required testing for college admissions. And so test prep was alive and well. And now, of course, if you live in California, they're test blind, and most of colleges across the country are test optional, with a few moving in the direction of going back to required. So just in this time span, sort of what should we know about this year, if you're a rising senior, 2025, and what do you foresee is coming for those who are 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. And yeah, it's been quite a stretch of years. So for this class, I mean, I think the most important thing is that for the application coming up this fall, pretty much every policy is fully baked. Whatever schools are on your list, they're being pretty upfront about whether they are testing required or testing optional, to your point, Cynthia, or again, the UCs, for instance, they're testing blind, and any number of other schools. So the good news is, whether you like the policy that school has chosen, requiring testing or not, at least it's known, and you can then move forth and navigate that process pretty smoothly. The part where I think it gets a little challenging, not so much maybe for rising juniors, but anyone younger than that, is I think the landscape's going to be pretty different a few years from now. I think you're going to continue to see testing requirements begin to come back. I would say particularly among what I like to call the brand name schools, which I think unfortunately too many applications go to, which I can speak to later. But I think it's going to happen actually for something no one saw coming, which is AI. I think more and more colleges are going to wonder, did you actually earn the grades in class? Did you actually write that essay? And the one thing they can know you did without AI's help is a fully proctored and secure exam. And I think that combined with grade inflation is going to unfortunately drive more interest back to testing. And I say unfortunately, even though I'm in test preparation, I've been an SAT and ACT tutor for years. I don't love these exams. I don't think they're a great experience for students, but I think they'll be a needed tool for colleges again over the next few years.
That's an interesting point. I haven't heard someone bring that up, but that's, I mean, we talk about that here just amongst the essay coaches. So in terms of, what can students do or think about, or, sorry, I'm admitting 1%. Okay.
No problem.
What are a number of ways that they can be prepping something that's maybe easy and user friendly and practically free to kinds of things that you offer? How can they be improving their score?
Well, so one of the most important things you do is actually just take some of these practice exams. They're free, both the SAT, College Board that makes the SAT, and the ACT make free exams available. And the first thing you should know is you got to get comfortable with it. You have to know what the experience is, to see the question style, understand some of the kind of traps they put in there for you to navigate. And that's something you can do on your own. The only thing it needs is your time and effort. So I always believe in starting there. Many of you probably have an official PSAT score because your school, has you go through it. Maybe you've taken a practice ACT, but I would say start there. Then, depending on how big the gap is between that score and where you might need to be for some of the schools on your list, that's I think where you decide what is the type of help I might need. And if it's a small gap, often, frankly, the free online resources from Khan Academy are stellar. I think some of the books made by major test prep companies, again, are great. And the trade-off you have is they are low on cost, but they are high on ask. And what I mean by that is you have to drive the improvement, right? You have to be willing to log into the platform every day. You have to go ahead and read that book and do the practice sets of questions. But if you do, they will work. But then again, if the gap is relatively large, or you think you need somebody that can help hold you accountable, guide you along, that's where things like a course, a paid course that a company like ours, I work at Revolution Prep, but of course there's other companies out there also doing good programming, or private tutoring begins to come in and make a big difference, because then you have somebody who can diagnose where your challenges are, really dial in on the questions or the concepts you're struggling with. But I think a lot of it has to do with, if you're the kind of person that will pick up and do the work, you can get really far really fast on your own. I'm a believer in that. But if that's who you are, and I think the best thing you could be is honest about that, and then that can help you decide what you want to do next. So
I was always someone who I just needed accountability, right?
Exactly. You need that.
As a teenager, I'd like to be able to say I was self-driven, but
the people have the gym membership and go, and there are the people who need a trainer to make sure there's an appointment to show up for, right? And so that's kind of the same idea.
I have two questions, and then students get ready, because I'll open it up to questions in a second. I have two questions, and that is, one, what are your recommendations for how one chooses SAT or ACT? And the second question, because I know who our seniors are, so I know that there's some seniors here. Yeah. How does one decide on test optional if I should I send how do I decide that?
This is a tough question. Yeah. Your first one, let me tackle, because that one's pretty straightforward in my mind. So I'll come back to advice I gave earlier, which is the best way to decide SAT or ACT is to take both, compare your scores. There's concordance tables. There's one on our website, revolutionprep.com, but they're all over, and figure out which one am I demonstrating a strength in, and pursue that one. That would be step one, because you want to put the best test score you can put together. Some students try to figure out what test score does a school like more. I'm not a believer in that. You want to have your best application. So figure out the test that's better for you. What you will find, though, if you do that, is 8 out of every 10 students are going to get a score that actually say they're comparable. Your SAT score and your ACT score are about the same. That's why the test can be used interchangeably. And in that case, you have your perfect potential score of 1,600 on the SAT. You have your perfect potential score of 36 on the ACT. They sound remarkably different, but again, that's where the tables come together and compare. They'll show you how to navigate that. When you have that, If it turns out your scores are about the same, then I go back to which is the test you felt more comfortable with, which is the one that, and now there's some big differences. Like the SAT is much shorter. The SAT has gone digital. It's only available now on a device. So you take it on an iPad, computer, whatever it might be, or you take the ACT paper and pencil. And that exam is now nearly 4 hours long. The SAT is about 3 hours long. So it's a pretty big difference. And so it's things like that that can help drive the decision for you. And then if you don't want to do any of that and you just want me to give you an answer, I always come back to this, which is the SAT has 2 sections, one math, one reading. So it's half of that exam is math. The ACT has 4 sections. Okay. It has math, English, science, and reading. So it's 1/4 math. And if you don't know that 1/2 is bigger than 1/4, take the ACT. That's what it is.
Oh my God. That might be the best. That might be the best answer I've ever heard, Ryan. Okay.
There you go.
That's
And now
good.
you had a second question.
Yes.
Testing optional. Do I send my score? So I think there's a few things that I would put on that. One is you can go back to, because most of these schools were indeed testing required as recently as maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You can go back to look at what were the admitted average SAT scores at that time and ACT scores, and then look at yourself and say, hey, if I'm at or above that average score at the time, I'm probably looked at favorably. And in particular, if I'm in the top quartile, meaning my score is equivalent to what the old top 25% used to be of scores, I would absolutely submit my score. The accept rate of students submitting scores for the colleges that are revealing the data is higher than for students not submitting scores. And so while it's not required, it is a data point that helps a lot of admissions offices. So I think it's a great way for you to bolster your application. If, however, testing is just not your thing, and you're at or below that average score, rather than chase some big increase, take the win, don't include it, and focus on the other parts of your application that can make you stand out, is probably what I would say, minus an actual real one-to-one conversation to be able to know for a particular student what the right answer might be.
Oh, you're just, yeah. I'm with you. That's exactly what I said. Like you have to figure out when to cut your losses, right? And move on and use your
100%.
time wisely in some other area of your application.
Totally.
Absolutely. Love this. Loving this conversation. Okay. Students, if you have a question in particular, go ahead and either just, you can unmute yourself for sure. If you can turn on your videos, we always like to see your shiny faces, but you might be lunching, learning at the same time, which I get. We are too. We're on our lunch break. Welcome Mel and welcome Steve, and welcome Fawn. If you want to type into the chat what grade you are and where you're tuning in from, or if you're a parent who you're representing, that would be great. And Ryan, I will also, anybody who signed in, I'll let you have their names and emails so that you can say hello.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyone wants to ask me a question separately, I can share I'll type in the chat my email address for anyone who wants to reach out to me.
Genevieve, do you have a question or anything? Genevieve, what grade are you?
I'm a rising junior.
You're rising junior. You're one of our rock stars because you're always at everything along with Mark. So this is good. Dina, do we have a question? I'm trying to think of.
Well, I have a question or something that hi, Steve. I would love for you to speak to our students about. I've just been seeing a lot of this since the SAT went digital. The notion that students come home from the SAT and they say, oh my God, it was so easy. I totally aced it. And they find out that their score was very low. And then the kids that come home and say to their parents, this was kind of hard. And, they end up doing better, right? The notion that was put out into the ether that if you do really well in the first section of whatever section you're taking, that they actually level up your test, your test questions and make them harder. Can you speak to what that means to students?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic question. So one thing that the SAT did in its transition to being digital is they also made it adaptive. and they're following suit. Actually, a lot of grad exams are adaptive, but rather than be item adaptive, which would mean every answer to every question influences your next question, they did something that is section adaptive. So the way it works, the point that was just made, is everyone takes a first section in the math for, well, let's just focus on math for now. The first section of math is leveled to be the same difficulty level for everyone taking the exam on that day. So same difficulty level. But if I'm struggling in math, and let's say I only get half the questions right in that first module, the second module I get is going to be easier than if I had done very well. What happens though to that perception, I then get to a second section, it's easier, I do a bit better, and I score well, but my score actually is capped because I'm in the lower difficulty module. As a result of that experience, the most I can get is about a 600 in the math section. So I might come back and go, wow, I felt pretty good about it because I got better along the way, but I'd also capped my potential score. Students who actually did very well in that first section go to a second section that, by the way, the first couple sittings of the SAT, that second math section is pretty hard. It is hard. It's hard. So even our tutors have remarked like, whoa, I took me, 5 minutes to answer that question, which for our tutors is uncommon. So, but then if you struggle, man, that got so hard, I think I missed a bunch of questions, you could still maybe end up with a 680 in math or 700 because you were in the harder section, and therefore the potential score is just higher for you for having made that second module. It does the same thing in the reading writing section. So the first module is of the same base level difficulty for all testers, and then your performance in module 1 dictates how you'll do in module 2. I will share, it's one thing that we think actually it impacts a certain type of student more than others. There's some students we work with, you may sound like one of you, which is you're prone to the occasional careless error. You kind of got to warm up a little bit as you go. You're actually a very good student. Well, what could happen in the past, you would get to take the whole test no matter what. You made some errors in the first few questions, you find your footing, you could still get all the way up to a 700 plus score. Now, because of those early missteps, it may be why you don't get to that higher level module. And now you actually can't ever get to a very high score just because the first few questions didn't go well for you. So it puts an onus on getting out of the gates really strong and being ready to go as soon as you sit for that test.
Oh, Ryan, these are such good, really good tips. And also just a reinforcement to take these practice tests before you actually do it, and
Totally.
to figure out what you're comfortable with and where you need support. Now, Ryan, you're here because testing is certainly not my particular niche. So I know everything about. So can I love what you just said in learning about the changes in the SAT, but scoring on the ACT, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that the ACT, you build your score up and never down. Is that, can you share how the ACT?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. At this point, both exams work. So it used to be the SAT penalized you for a wrong answer and the ACT did not. So to your point, Cynthia, it was just how many right answers did you get? And the difference between not answering or getting it wrong on the ACT didn't matter. And on the SAT, it did. Getting it wrong was actually a penalty, which is then made you think, should I skip it or not? But now the SAT also eliminated the wrong answer penalty. So they are both cumulative at this point. But one nuance is your SAT score is the combination of your reading, writing, and your math. Both you can get up to 800, so therefore your total score is up to 1600. The ACT, however, your overall score is the average of your 4 section scores. Each one is, in theory, 0 to 36, and they average them together. So, you could get a 25 in one, 20 in the other, or 30, and then a 15, and your ACT score is going to be that average. That's important to know because we get sometimes questions about students, should I retake the exam or not? And, I've got a 32 or whatever it might be. I actually sometimes like to get their section scores and figure out what was your actual before average score, because they round it. So I often come back to like, if your average score was 31, your overall average was 31.25, they rounded you down to a 31. But that actually means you only need to get one more point in any of the 4 sections to jump your whole score up. However, if your average score was 32.5, they gave you a 33 because they round you up. But now to go from 33 to 34, you'll need to improve 4 points across the 4 sections because you need to get a whole other. So there's some nuance there. Again, that's individual student based, but that is where the scoring gets a little interesting.
Ooh, I love details like this. So good. Okay, I'm gonna pause here to see if anyone has a question. You're welcome to just unmute yourself because we're a small group.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Fawn.
That's
Welcome.
not fun.
Hi. Okay. This is not relevant to my son, but I've always wondered, and it might be helpful for others, is when you're taking these tests, you know how there's the option of if you want your score automatically sent to colleges or not.
Mhm.
Is it best to not have them sent anywhere if you don't know your list of colleges yet? You haven't, if you're a freshman or a sophomore, just don't even have them automatically sent anywhere because you might be taking it multiple times.
I think Cynthia will give you the best answer there because I can help you get a great score. The choice about when to send them, how to send them, I think falls a little more into Cynthia's boat, but I'll add some commentary additionally if I need to, but go ahead, Cynthia.
Fawn, oh my God, it's so funny that you bounce this to me because I just said, Fawn, this is the great question. And I just got this question, I think yesterday. And I always say, don't send. Don't send until you know what your score is. Because it's test optional now, you have the choice of which colleges you get to send to based on what Ryan said earlier. Like you're going to look at, I'm going to tell you, those of you who are Dream College Academy students, you know that we go over this, all of this information in module 1 and then also again in module 2. So, obviously, it's a good thing when you get these 4 for free and you can, send them to anywhere. So you have to weigh that. But for me, usually the benefit is just waiting and then deciding which ones to send them to because you can't unsend them, right? Once you've sent them to, like I worked as an admission officer, like once they're there, they're part of your file. You can't be like, hey, can you just take that back? It doesn't.
Do they get subsequent ones if you take it again, or they only get that first one?
They only get the one that you've said for free. Now you can send it. So then what happens if you get a better score another time, then you need to pay for it. So wait to see your score and then see if super score. There's all kinds of strategies to it, but I never recommend using the 4 free.
Okay. Thank
Ryan,
you.
you want to add to that, Ryan?
I'd agree. I think the testing what you pointed out in the world of testing optional, wait until you decide, is this an asset? When it used to be testing required, it's a little different. You'd have to get it to them anyway. So there's a little less gamesmanship to it. But I think now you want to wait and make sure you're putting your best foot forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. And I need your shirt, Fawn. I need to order that shirt for myself. Okay, so other questions? We've got time for a couple more questions. That was a great question. I was going to ask that question in case
While they're thinking, can I pop in something about super score?
Yep.
Hey guys, while you're thinking about questions, just to sort of jump onto this, what we've talked about based on Fawn's amazing question, even if you're at a school where testing is not optional, some schools allow you to super score and some schools don't. Some schools require all of the test sittings, right? And some schools don't. So there's really no percentage in sending those free scores, whatever money you're saving, it's not worth $12. It's like in the long, $48 is not really worth it to take that risk. If you might find that school actually super scores, you know? So
Ryan, go ahead and share. What does super score mean?
thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, great question. So super scoring is when you're submitting multiple test scores. Some schools will say, I'm going to take the best individual scores across your multiple sittings and say that's your score. So let's rarely will it be this extreme, but let's say you sit for an SAT, you get an 800 math and you get a 600 reading, which by the way on its own still a great score, right? 1400, we would take it. But you go, I know I can get the reading right and I'm going to focus. And then you go and you take it again. And in your focus on reading, which you get to 800, your math falls off and it dropped to 600. The good news is if you send both those scores to a school that super scores, they think you evaluate as a perfect SAT score. They say you got an 800 math on the one, you got an 800 verbal on the other, reading, right? And they'll combine it. Other schools won't necessarily do that. Some schools average them. There's a lot of different policies, but super scoring or no adjustments, just your highest one-time sitting are the two most common uses of test scores for schools.
Right now that we're talking about this, I'm not sure that it's very easy to know what schools' policies are. I don't know that they list
Yeah, I
it.
was just gonna ask, like, how do we know
Yeah.
which schools do what?
So
You have to Google it. and
I
you can
think
find it.
you can, what I'm saying is I don't think it's user friendly. I don't think it's like, clearly stated,
No.
but you can find it. You just have to dig it. So just being here and knowing that that's a thing, now you should ask, right? If you're on a webinar or you're at the campus, that was always a question I got at Vassar when I would present in front of that was always a question. Do you super score? Do you take the best single sitting? Now I'm going to tell you from the admissions perspective, you have to think of it from our perspective. We prefer, it's a win for the college to take your best super score, because now I get to report, right? If I'm a college trying to get more people to want to apply, like I want our score average to go higher. So it's a win for the college too.
absolutely.
It's a business, you guys, right? That's why
One little thing I'd add is if you're going to ask, the students should be the ones asking, not their parents. On any webinar, on any phone call to an admissions office, they want to know that the students advocate for themselves. It's better demonstrated interest. So it's just a small nuance. But even if you're thinking about calling the advising office, I often recommend have your son or daughter do it. It's a simple question. And then, they're on that university's radar now for good reason. So
such good advice. And yes, I think in my book, I can't remember what chapter it is, I talk about being an admission officer, and at the end of the speak at the ballroom, they would all come up. And if the parent was asking me a question, I would always turn my eyeballs to the student and answer the question to the student. And that is your cue, parents, to stop asking the question and let them do it. So, such good advice. We're almost out of time. I want to be mindful of the fact that, we try to keep these lunch and learns, Truth Talk Thursdays to just 30 minutes. So please share, again, this is your time for your just shameless plug. Please tell us who you are, what you do, and how our guests our students can find.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that. So again, my name is Ryan. It was good meeting you all. I serve as CEO at Revolution Prep. We're a nationwide tutoring firm. While we specialize quite a bit in SAT and ACT, we actually help in grades K through 12. So we do academic tutoring. In fact, we have a lot of students right now taking some Algebra 2 readiness programs we have as they transition into that, because it's often hits some students hard. But we want to help. We also do executive functioning training, which has emerged as, particularly coming out of COVID, an area of need for a lot of students. How do you make sure you're using your time wisely, organizing appropriately, moving things into your working memory, et cetera. So really the way I would sum it up is we're here for when you run into any kind of educational barrier. If there's a course that's tripping you up, a test you can't figure out, we're really good at that. We like cracking those codes. So revolutionprep.com is the website. I dropped my email address in chat. You're always free to reach out to me directly if you'd like. And I wish you success on this journey. It's meant to be fun and exciting. And Cynthia does a good job of channeling that stress into a better, more productive emotions of excitement. And so glad to be a part of this.
That's great. That's great. Well, just as a reminder to those of you who are watching right now or will be watching later, this week, starting on Friday, tomorrow, we're doing our free 3-day Ivy League Admission Secrets Challenge. It's not just if you're applying just for Ivy Leagues, but it's just the top 100. And really, I'm giving you lots of insider background information, things that I've learned and picked up on. I'm a first generation to college myself. I worked for Vassar College and learned just how different the resources students have. So trying to close the information gap in order to help close the education gap. So if you have not signed up for our 3-day challenge, please do so. You'll just come out wiser and more confident in all of that. Of course, obviously, we're doing essay boot camps for the summer. So those of you who are rising seniors, please connect with us and we'll get you into the right package. Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. And let's blow up the chat. Thank our guests. Boop, 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 boop. Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Good luck. Be well. Bye-bye.
Ryan, so good to see you.
You as well, Cynthia. We'll catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. For nearly 30 years, I have worked at elite private colleges and/or private high schools. I know what well-resourced families do to ensure college success, and I can tell you, if your child is enrolled at a public or religious high school, chances are she or he is already 5 steps behind. However, today is your lucky day. To get you ahead of your private school peers, I have a gift for you. I'm revealing the exact admission committee process we used at Vassar. It's all in my new guide, 4 questions admission officers ask when deciding who to admit or reject. You can go to drcynthiacolon.com/admit to get your copy. I share the 4 questions I used in the 12 minutes I had to review the entire application. If you've ever wondered what admission officers are looking for and how decisions are actually made, you're not alone. Take action now to get 5 steps ahead and begin increasing those acceptance letters. Again, that's Dr. Cynthia Colon, drcynthiacolon.com/admit. That is all I have for you today, my friends. Thank you for tuning in to Destination University. I'm Dr. Cynthia Colon. If this episode has in any way helped, fueled, or inspired you, please share this episode with 3 people in the next 30 minutes. You can subscribe to Destination University wherever you get your podcast. And while you're there, leave us a review. It sure does help a lot. By subscribing and reviewing, you help to grow the community of informed families across the nation. And if you haven't binge listened to our previous seasons, do it. With each episode, you'll learn a new tip, trick, or strategy for success. Start with episode 1, the one word every parent should remove. You'll learn my mom's secret to ensuring college success for her daughters. And once again, if you found value today, please share this episode with 3 families in the next 30 minutes. I'll be sure to see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening this week to Destination University. Be sure to join Dr. Cynthia Colon again and get one step closer to your success.